Hello everyone and welcome back. Today's video will be a simple HTML introduction and history. Hope you all will enjoy it, and please don't forget to subscribe and enable the notification bell to get the latest videos. We all have browsed through many websites, and there are many that are interactive, attractive, and just makes you want to scroll up and down to watch the cool effects that are happening. Some websites even looks like an art piece with functional and interactive buttons, clicks, data retrieval, and many other functions. All of that would not have been created without our easy and friendly language, HTML. So what does HTML stands for? The Hypertext Markup Language, or HTML, is the standard markup language for documents designed to be displayed in a web browser. It is often assisted by technologies such as cascading style sheets, CSS, and scripting languages such as JavaScript. What does markup mean and how does it work? Markup languages is a text encoding system consisting of a set of symbols inserted in a text document to control its structure, formatting, or the relationship between its parts. Markup is often used to control the display of the document or to enrich its content to facilitate automated processing. Markup language is a set of rules governing what markup information may be included in a document and how it is combined with the content of the document in a way to facilitate use by humans and computer programs. The idea and terminology evolved from the marking of paper manuscripts, like the revision instructions by editors, which is traditionally written with a red pen or blue pencil on authors' manuscripts. Older markup languages, which typically focus on typography and presentation, include Traf, Tech, and LaTeX. Scribe and most modern markup languages, such as XML, identify document components, for example, headings, paragraphs, with the expectation that technologies such as style sheets will be used to apply formatting or other processing. Some markup languages, such as the widely used HTML, have predefined presentation semantics, meaning that their specifications prescribe some aspects of how to present the structured data on particular media. HTML, like DocBook and many others, is based on the markup meta languages, that is SGML and XML, allow designers to specify particular schemes which determines which elements, attributes, and other features are permitted and where. What does a web browser mean? A web browser is an application for accessing websites. When a user requests a web page from a particular website, the browser retrieves its files from a web server and then displays the page on the user's screen. Browsers are used on a range of devices, including desktops, laptops, tablets, and smartphones. In 2020, an estimated 4.9 billion people have used the browser. The most used browser is Google Chrome, with a 65% global market share on all devices, followed by Safari with 18%. Web browser versus search engines. A web browser is not the same thing as a search engine, though the two are often confused. A search engine is a website that provides links to other websites. However, to connect to a website server and display its web pages, a user must have a web browser installed. In some technical contexts, browsers are referred to as user agents. Purpose of a web browser. The purpose of a web browser is to fetch content from the World Wide Web or from local storage and display it on a user's device. This process begins when the user inputs a uniform resource locator URL into the browser virtually. All URLs are retrieved using the Hypertext Transfer Protocol (HTTP), a set of rules for the transfer of data. If the URL uses the secure mode of HTTP, HTTPS, the connection between the browser and the web server is encrypted for the purpose of communication security and information privacy. Web pages usually contain hyperlinks to other pages and resources. Each link contains a URL, and when it is clicked or tapped, the browser navigates to the new resource. Most browsers use an internal cache of web page resources to improve loading times for subsequent visits to the same page. The cache can store many items, such as large images, so they do not need to be downloaded from the server again. Cached items are usually only stored for as long as the web server stipulates in its HTTP response messages. What is a web server? A web server is computer software and underlying hardware that accepts requests through HTTP, the network protocol created to distribute web content, or its secure variant HTTPS. A user agent, commonly a web browser or web crawler, initiates communication by making a request for a web page or other resource using HTTP, and the server responds with the content of that resource or an error message. A web server can also accept and store resources sent from the user agent if configured to do so. A resource sent from a web server can be a pre-existing file, static content, available to the web server, or it can be generated at the time of the request, dynamic content, by another program that communicates with the server software. The former usually can be served faster and can be more easily cached for repeated requests, while the latter supports a broader range of applications. What is CSS? Cascading Style Sheets is a style sheet language used for describing the presentation of a document written in a markup language such as HTML or XML, including XML delegates such as SVG, MathML, or XHTML. CSS is designed to enable the separation of content and presentation, including layout, colors, and fonts. This separation can improve content accessibility, provide more flexibility and control in the specification of presentation characteristics, enable multiple web pages to share formatting by specifying the relevant CSS in a separate CSS file, which reduce complexity and repetition in the structural content, and enable the CSS file to be cached to improve the page load speed between the pages that share the file and its formatting. Coding versus scripting. Coding is the process of creating sophisticated software applications by writing code from scratch. For that, you need to execute programming languages such as Java or Python. A scripting language or script language is a programming language that is used to manipulate, customize, and automate the facilities of an existing system. Scripting languages are usually interpreted at runtime rather than compiled. Scripting is the process of writing codes that a computer can execute dynamically. Compiler versus interpreter. An interpreter is a computer program that directly executes instructions written in a programming or scripting language without requiring them previously to have been compiled into a machine language program. An interpreter generally uses one of the following strategies for program execution. First, parse the source code and perform its behavior directly. Second, translate source code into some efficient intermediate representation or object code and immediately execute that. Third, explicitly execute stored precompiled bytecode made by a compiler and matched with the interpreter virtual machine. In computing, a compiler is a computer program that translates computer code written in one programming language, the source language, into another language, the targeted language. The name compiler is primarily used for programming programs that translate source code from high-level programming languages to a low-level programming languages like assembly language, object code, or machine code to create an executable program. What are HTML elements? HTML elements are the building blocks of HTML pages. With HTML constructs, images, and other objects such as interactive forms may be embedded into the rendered page. HTML provides a means to create structured documents by denoting structural semantics for the text, such as headings, paragraph lists, links, codes, and other items. HTML elements are delineated by tags written using angle brackets. Tags such as image and input directly introduce content into the page. Other tags such as paragraph surrounded and provided information about document text and may include sub-element tags. Browsers do not display the HTML tags but use them to interpret the content of the page. HTML can embed programs written in a scripting language such as JavaScript, which affects the behavior and content of web pages. The inclusion of CSS defines the look and layout of content. The World Wide Web Consortium W3C, former maintainer of the HTML and current maintainer of the CSS standards, has encouraged the use of CSS over explicit presentational HTML since 1997. A form of HTML known as HTML5 is used to display video and audio primarily using the canvas element together with JavaScript. The early beginning of HTML. In 1980, physicist Tim Berners-Lee, a contractor at CERN, proposed and prototyped Inquire, a system for CERN researchers to use and share documents. In 1989, Berners-Lee wrote a memo proposing an internet-based hypertext system. Berners-Lee specified HTML and wrote the browser and server software in late 1990. That year, Berners-Lee and CERN data systems engineer Robert Killiot collaborated on a joint request for funding, but the project was not formally adopted by CERN. In his personal notes of 1990, he listed some of the many areas in which hypertext is used, and encyclopedia is the first entry. The first publicly available description of HTML was a document called HTML tags, first mentioned on the internet by Tim Berners-Lee in the late 1991. It describes 18 elements, comprising the initial relatively simple design of HTML. Except for the hyperlink tag, these were strongly influenced by SGML and in-house standards generalized markup languages, SGML-based documentation format at CERN. 11 of these elements still exist in HTML4. Will HTML get replaced? HTML won't be replaced as a standard anytime soon. It is too widespread a technology, and the amount of re-education required among people working with web apps and websites to switch technology completely would be massive and very costly. HTML will, however, like any other technology, evolve. HTML alone is not sufficient for a web developer because HTML only defines the structure of the data that will be rendered on the browser in a web page. To make it visually appealing and to make it functional, we will need to use CSS and JavaScript respectively. The latest version of HTML is HTML5. We have reached the end of today's video. Thank you all for watching and hope to see you on the next video.